The top stories tonight and why news. Inflation rate in the Philippines rose in July.
Modified enhanced community quarantine is back in Metro Manila, and some jeepney drivers expressed disappointment as mass transport is suspended anew.
There will be no face-to-face classes during the first semester of school year 2020-2021 in higher education institutions. Commuters will be required to wear a full face shield when on public utility vehicles from August 15.
Police severely condemned netizens for spreading fake news that the Commissioner of Police was infected with COVID-19.
Sudanese runner hailed as UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, August 5, 2020. I am Herlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, the national government continues to appeal to Filipinos to take extra precautions against coronavirus infection for the sake of lives and the country's economy. Our Malacanang correspondent, Rosa Licos, tells us why.
Authorities and health experts say that every single individual's action has an impact not only on lives but also on the economy. In July, the Philippines headline inflation exhibited a faster pace according to Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA. Inflation picked up to 2.7% last month, higher than the 2.5% in June 2020. July's inflation rate was 0.3%, higher than that in the same month last year. The inflation acceleration was mainly caused by transport costs as the Philippines gradually reopened its economy amid the coronavirus pandemic. Those include higher fares for tricycle, ferries, and domestic flights. Although the country's inflation rate rose last month, it was still within the forecast of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, which is 2.2 to 3% inflation. Meanwhile, the PSA is expected to release its report on the second quarter economic growth tomorrow, which is worse than the first quarter. The Duterte administration has been appealing to the public to take extra caution and strictly adhere to public minimum health protocols to protect lives and livelihood as well as the economy. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Drivers of public utility vehicles call on the government to allow them to operate again. Joan Nano will join us tonight to tell us why live. Yes, Joan.
Harleen, many public utility drivers are just borrowing money for them to feed their family as the government reverts Metro Manila to stricter community quarantine measures. Under MECQ, mass transport is once again suspended until August 18. And because of this, Harleen, several public utility drivers in Metro Manila expressed disappointment and worry now that their bread and butter is halted anew. One of them is Joker Simeon, who has just installed plastic barriers inside his jeepney. He complains that he has yet to pay the 1,000 pesos he borrowed just to comply with the barrier policy on jeepneys. Let us hear his statement.
Utang ko pa nga yung ginamit ko dyan eh. Pinangutang ko pa sa mga tao para lang makabiyahe ako. Katulad dyan, pinahinto na naman. Ano na lang mangyayari sa amin? Kami mga driver.
Julito Simeon, another jeepney driver, is also troubled. He has no income for 5 months now. Julito says he is full of debts and unable to pay them, so his problem now is how to sustain his family's basic need like food. This is his statement.
Wala po, gutom dahil hindi po ako makabiyahe. 5 buwan na katulad nito, welcome yung akin. Paano ako makakabiyahe? Paano kikita? Gutom na yung pamilya ko. Puro utang na ako. Saan ako kuha ng pambayad?
Harleen, several jeepney drivers are back on the roads of Manila and Quezon cities. According to Edwin Alvarado, there are times when they could raise 1,000 pesos from asking for alms. That amount is distributed among their group of drivers, which they use for their families' necessities. Most of them, he says, are temporarily staying at their jeepney terminal because they can no longer afford their home rent. Their problem now is how to let their children continue their studies as school reopened this month.
Bali, pag binibili naman ng pagkain at yun, niluluto, pinag-aati-atian namin nandiyan kami. Mga mahigit 10 kami nandiyan sa loob mga driver.
They are once again calling for the government's help. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said yesterday that the government has been able to disburse around 50% of the social amelioration program, and they are targeting to finish the distribution of the second tranche of cash aid by second week of August. Malacanang has also stated earlier that Congress has to appropriate new funds in order for the government to provide the third tranche of SAP. PUV drivers continue to urge the government to allow them to continue their operations, so they wouldn't need to depend on the government's assistance to survive. And that is the latest live. Back to you, Hardy.
Thank you so much, Joan Nano, for that report.
Meanwhile, the government will have to complete the distribution of the second tranche of the Social Amelioration Program in Metro Manila this week. Dante Amento tells us why.
It's MECQ once again in Metro Manila, and some breadwinners of families who were able to return income generation during the general community quarantine period have to stay home again because the movement of people in MECQ areas is more limited. DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya says the government will have to complete the distribution of the second tranche of the Social Amelioration Program or SAP in the National Capital Region this week to help families to get by during the MECQ period. Households who did not receive financial aid in the first tranche of SAP or those waitlisted will receive double the amount or 16,000 pesos. These include jeepney drivers who were not able to operate due to the suspension of mass transport since the implementation of community quarantine.
Kahapon, nag-commit ang DSWD na ibibigay yan sa loob ng linggong ito sa lahat ng beneficiaryo. So, timing na timing po, no? Kasi pag sinasabing MECQ, hindi makakapagtrabaho ang tao, nandyan ang national para ibigay yung second tranche.
All payouts are done digitally through ATM card or GCash to avoid crowding in barangays. With this, the DILG warns the public of circulating text scams asking information about the SAP.
Hanggang sa umagang ito, may mga naloloko sa text dahil sa scam ng Social Amelioration Program. Kami po ay nananawagan sa taong bayan na pag makatanggap po kayo ng text at sinasabing kayo ay taga DSWD na nagte-text sa inyo at kailangan ibigay nyo yung PIN, wag nyo pong ibibigay ang PIN.
Based on data, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has distributed 69.2 billion pesos to more than 9.77 million beneficiaries of SAP-2.
The DSWD aims to complete the SAP distribution across the country on or before August 15. Parañaque City began today the disbursement of the 5,000 peso cash assistance for each household beneficiary. According to Mayor Edwin Olivares, they have to finish in 10 days for 40,000 beneficiaries who are provided with cash cards to avoid physical contact during transaction. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police will not arrest quarantine violators in the initial days of the MECQ in Metro Manila, Laguna, Batangas, and Rizal. Leia Ilagan tells us why.
The public may still be adjusting with the transition from general community quarantine to modified enhanced community quarantine, which happened in a matter of days. The police will not arrest community quarantine violators for 3 days in MECQ areas. Philippine National Police Chief Police General Archie Gamboa explains they will only remind people of the minimum health protocols in those 3 days. General Gamboa also reminds police personnel to exercise maximum tolerance all the time when dealing with violators.
Bibigyan natin ang publiko ng strict warning, no, on the first initial days of violations, no, kasi kung nag-a-adjust sa PNP, nag-a-adjust, no, and again, reminder ko lang is maximum tolerance on the part of the Philippine National Police, no, especially the women and then the elderly, kung may maglalabas mang elderly.
PNP Directorate for Operations Director Police Major General Emmanuel Licup meanwhile says they will, however, enforce the minimum health protocols strictly.
They have to be strict enough na maintindihan ng bawat isa na we are doing this because of the pandemic.
The PNP chief calls on the public not to provoke the police to avoid being charged for disobedience and for violating health protocols.
Sana naman the public will cooperate para hindi na mapilitan ang PNP na mag-impose ng regulation. Alam natin kung sino yung persons who are authorized to be outside their residences. So please, we need the cooperation of the public para maiwasan natin yung confrontation sa checkpoint.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
As Metro Manila and its neighboring provinces revert to modified enhanced community quarantine or MECQ, the Commission on Higher Education or CHED reiterates there will be no face-to-face classes in universities and higher education institutions. During today's hearing of the Committee on Higher Education, CHED Chairperson Prospero De Vera said they are still drafting the guidelines for the limited face-to-face classes for low-risk modified general community quarantine or MGCQ areas. He added they will also conduct an inspection in universities to check their preparations for the possible classroom setup.
Face-to-face now. Okay. The projection is the earliest we will be able to do it will be the second semester or in January. And we want to see the prototype on the ground if it is feasible and if it will pass health standards.
De Vera added that as of now, higher education institutions, including state universities and colleges, are implementing the flexible learning modality, which include the combination of online and offline activities. Some top universities, meanwhile, have started with their full online learning. However, Chet admitted there are still extension campuses that have weak to no internet connection.
There are very few who don't have connectivity. Doon sa report sa amin, halos wala yung nag-claim na wala silang connectivity. Pero may mga campus sila na walang connectivity at all. So we have to be very strategic based on available data across campuses. So we are getting that, we have that data now to make decisions for connectivity.
De Vera also appealed to the Senate to help the small private universities in shifting to distance learning amid the COVID-19 crisis. The chairperson notes that smaller private universities cater to 525,000 students across the country.
They're the ones that government needs to help kasi ang marami sa kanila talagang tuition dependent. If the enrollment goes down, they have to lay off people or they have to close for the year. So hindi nila kaya mag-transition as fast as the others.
Talagang sila yung hirap, no? Because wala silang technical expertise and also the capital to move. And I found out that itong online system napakamahal, no? It's not cheap, no? And those small universities might have a very difficult time to acquire that.
An association of colleges and universities added, based on their ongoing survey, there are small private tertiary schools that may face closure due to the decrease in the student enrollment.
It's really very difficult to have the students enroll in private schools right now because many of our students are coming from OFW families and families whose parents lost their jobs because of the COVID.
The Senate committee has asked Chad to provide the specific proposal for the 3 billion peso standby fund allocated in the Senate's version of the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, which is intended for the implementation of smart campuses and flexible learning methods of state universities and colleges.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 3,462 new cases were reported today based on tests done by 84 out of 98 laboratories. That raises the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infections in the Philippines to 115,980. The National Capital Region contributed the highest number of new cases with more than 2,400. There are at present 47,005 cases. Of those patients, 91.4% are in mild condition. It is followed by Laguna and Rizal, both with more than 100 new cases. We have lost 9 more patients, but through our fervent prayers and medical interventions and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 222 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total number of recoveries nationwide to 66,270. Thanks be to God. Among other alleged irregularities, Filipino lawmakers see corruption in PhilHealth's case rate system. One lawmaker also questions the actual life projected by the agency. One of our senior correspondents, Ray Pelayo, will tell us why.
The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, started its case rate system in 2011. The agency gives healthcare institutions a corresponding amount for every case of diseases like pneumonia, gastroenteritis, and urinary tract infection. And as the COVID-19 pandemic came, PhilHealth allocated a 30 billion peso fund for the interim reimbursement mechanism. But Philippine lawmakers are asking PhilHealth officials why they have to pay for other cases worth less than the amount of a particular case rate.
Ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Nagpunta ka ng ospital, palagay mo na ospital ng Maynila, at ikaw po ay binigyan ng kaukulang atensyon medikal. Ang ginastos mo ay 20,000. Ang babayaran pa rin ng PhilHealth sa ospital ay 43,000 under the case rate system.
So tinuturing ito na parang kita na ng ospital. Kumbaga, reward dahil efficient sila, dahil mas mura ang ginastos nila kesa dun sa case rate na inassign ng PhilHealth. Ganun po ba yun?
Magiging incentive ho dun sa mga ospital na maging efficient sila para pagkakasya ho yung case rate na pinapataw dun sa mga sakit na ginagamot nila.
PhilHealth President Retired General Ricardo Morales said the case rate will be transitioned to a global budget wherein funds will be entrusted on local government units as part of the Universal Healthcare Law. Meanwhile, Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo questions the actuarial life of the agency, which will last only until next year. PhilHealth said part of the agency's fund is being allotted to the COVID-19 response, estimated at 45 billion pesos for this year alone. The lawmaker asked the officials to review their projection.
And if I apply again the distribution by type of pneumonia, yung mild, severe, etc., hindi po aabot ng 45 billion kahit na i-multiply ko pa yan by 10.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Senator Panfilo Lacson reveals a former PhilHealth officer backed out from the Senate probe on the allegations of corruption inside the agency due to safety concerns. According to Lacson, the resigned executive assistant of PhilHealth and CEO PhilHealth President and CEO Ricardo Morales, Colonel Etrobal Laborte was supposed to testify before the Senate Committee of the Whole yesterday but backed out on last minute due to several reasons, including physical security. The lawmaker adds he was supposed to meet with Laborte a few weeks ago but later withdrew, saying that he feels he is under threat. Also, one of the witnesses in yesterday's hearing, resigned PhilHealth Anti-Fraud Legal Officer Attorney Thorson Keith, also requested to Lacson to testify virtually instead of attending physically due to safety concerns. Lacson says he will talk to Laborte to convince him to testify in the next hearing before looking into issuing a subpoena.
Si Attorney Keith at saka si Colonel Laborte, as of yung a day or 2 days before yung hearing kahapon, meron kaming pag-uusap na mag-a-attend sila. But again, last minute, sabi nila, natatakot sila kung pwedeng mag-Zoom na lang sila.
We can always provide security for him.
Meanwhile, Senate President Vicente Soto III says Morales may be either protecting someone or something inside the agency or blindsided with the corruption in PhilHealth. He believes a businessman at the helm of PhilHealth will solve its issues on corruption and wrongdoings.
So, ang rekomendasyon namin, kung talagang mapapatunayan na mali-mali yung ginawa or talagang matindi ang corruption, ay talagang i-wipe out dapat yun. Wipe out yung mga opisyalis doon na involved.
According to the senators, they will invite Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission or PACC Commissioner Greco Belhica and the Commission on Audit in the next hearing to shed light on the allegations hounding the agency.
The Department of Trade and Industry requires commuters to wear a face shield when using public transportation from August 15. But the local government of Taytay Rizal began enforcing today a policy on the mandatory wearing of face shields in all public areas. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
Aside from wearing a face mask, commuters will be required to wear a face shield when traveling through any public transport vehicles 10 days from today. In a memorandum circular of the Department of Transportation, DOTR informs all leaders in the transportation sector of the new requirement among public utility vehicles. This measure has already been approved by the IATF. The mandatory wearing of face shield aims to provide added protection to commuters who use passenger buses and jeepneys, taxis, trains, and other modes of public transportation. This will take effect when the operation of public transport resumes in places under general community quarantine and modified GCQ.
Ang public transportation ay napaka-critical. Napakalaki ng potential niya na maging transmission vector ng virus. Kaya naman, nag-add tayo ng stricter health and sanitation protocol. Yun nga yung pagsusuot ng full face shield para sa ating mga pasahero.
Commuters who will fail to wear a face shield will not be allowed to get their ride on a PUV. In Taytay Rizal, the local government announced today the ordinance requiring residents to wear a face shield in public places. Authorities explained that despite having to spend for a new face shield, the cost is way less than having to spend when a family member gets down with the virus. Although some understand the benefits of wearing a face shield, others appeal not to oblige the public.
Additional cost kasi yan. Ay, yung walang pera, kawawa naman. Kaya lang, hindi talaga dapat maging mandatory.
Sa akin, okay naman ang face mask lang. Basta may distance ka naman sa kausap mo. Wala naman sigurong problema. Pero sa face shield, sa isang banda, syempre, sa konti lang kinikita natin, laking kabawasan pa rin sa amin yan, kahit sabihin mo mura pa rin yan.
But others approve of this anti-coronavirus step.
Pabor po ako para din naman po sa kaligtasan nating lahat yung napatupad po na patas na kailangan mag-face shield.
Basta wag lang patigilin maghanap buhay. Okay lang yun kahit anong sundin natin.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health will hire additional healthcare workers to be deployed in regions with high cases of COVID-19. Our health correspondent, Aiko Miguel, explains why.
In accordance with the government's response to healthcare workers' appeal, the DOH will hire additional healthcare workers to be deployed in areas with high COVID-19 cases, like the National Capital Region, Calabarzon, Central Luzon, and Cebu.
DOH now is exploring to change the contracting period of our Health Human Resources for Health from 3 months to 6 months and expedite the hiring of HRH to priority areas. We had been recomputing budget requirements to support these initiatives.
According to the DOH, they are making ways to fast-track the recruitment of healthcare workers from public, private, and medical centers in provinces. The DOH assures they will be provided appropriate wages and additional benefits. The Health Department will maximize the 2-week MECQ to plan and strategize for the country's response to the pandemic. The DOH today presented the list of things to expect after 14 days of MECQ. The strengthening of the existing health protocols in all communities, like the responsible wearing of face masks and face shield, strict observance of physical distancing in public markets, transport terminals, and communities, 100% symptom check for every household, and the strengthening or active contact tracing. After 14 days of MECQ, rapid antibody test kits will no longer be used for screening and as a return to work clearance of employees. The DOH reminds the public not to discriminate people who tested positive for COVID-19. Instead, support them emotionally and help them survive medically. The DOH also assures the 2 weeks of MECQ will be used to recalibrate strategies and prepare the country's health capacity. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police will allow motorists who are not authorized persons outside of residence or airport to pass through their checkpoints. Leia Ilagan clarifies why.
Non-APOR individuals or those who are not authorized persons outside of residence are allowed to pass through a police checkpoint amid the MECQ period only if they will transport a family member to work. Joint Task Force Coronavirus Shield Commander, Police Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar said in Get It Straight with Danielle Razon today, essential workers will need to present their company ID or employment certificate, while the rider of a private motorcycle may just explain and present his driver's license and the protective shield on his motorcycle if he was flagged down at a checkpoint.
Yung po magdadrive sa kanya, hindi naman kailangan na siya po ay APOR or essential worker. As long as hindi po ito yung for hire. Kailangan po ito is privately owned at saka pati merong barrier na nakalagay dito po yung prescribed barrier na inaprubahan ng ating National Task Force.
Eleazar warns those who will take advantage of this regulation.
Pagtatanong ng ating pulis at nalaman natin na yan ay nagsasamantala, yun ay lalo na kung halimbawa habal-habal din lamang sila o nagpapaupa, ay managot po yung mga yan.
Eleazar also adds private vehicles will also be thoroughly inspected to ensure that individuals on board the vehicle are essential workers.
Ito pong mga sedan or pati na rin po yung mga vans, lagi na lamang na dapat ang nasa loob ay mga essential workers na work-related pa rin yung travel nila. Ngayon nasa MECQ po tayo, hindi tayo pwedeng basta-basta lumabas. Yung pong hindi essential worker, isa lang bawat pamilya o household ang authorized lumabas kung sila ay bibili ng kanilang mga pangailangan at yun ay bibili nila within their locality, within their city. So hindi sila dapat mag-cross ng border.
Eleazar also clarifies that essential workers are not allowed to go outdoors except when on their way to and from work.
Kung kayo naman po ay kasama dun sa allowed na nasa labas, siguraduhin lamang na ang inyong travel ay work-related. Dahil kahit po kayo nasa listahan, for example, ang media, kayo nga po ay sabihin na natin na essential worker, pero yung travel nyo naman is hindi papunta doon sa pinagtatrabahuhan nyo. Kung hindi, may pupunta kayo babagay, hindi rin po kayo allowed.
The Joint Task Force Coronavirus Shield asked for cooperation from the public for us to win the battle against the health crisis the world is facing. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Now here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. The trough of a low-pressure area is affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 3 p.m. today, the LPA was spotted 225 kilometers south-southeast of Puerto Princesa City in Palawan. Brace yourselves for rain because the trough of the LPA will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Mimaropa, Bicol region, Visayas, Mindanao, and Quezon. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to localized thunderstorms. Take extra care because possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. However, the country is not expecting any tropical cyclone for now.
Many Filipinos have lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While many are searching for employment, the BPO, education, and IT-related jobs are the most in demand these days. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected not just our health, but also our economy and the way we live. As some are coping with the effects of the pandemic and making ends meet every single day, many Filipinos are now looking for a safer source of income, one that they can do within the comfort and safety of their homes. That is why JobStreet Philippines was able to record almost a double increase in figures of Filipinos looking for work-from-home jobs from their March to April 2020 data. According to Philip Gioca, country manager of JobStreet Philippines, job seekers are now looking for opportunities that help them earn a living while staying at home due to movement restrictions and safety from getting exposed to the virus. Among the most sought-after jobs during the pandemic are those in the business process outsourcing or BPO industry, such as customer service representatives, online English teaching, and information technology or IT-related jobs like creation of software and mobile applications. If you have a capital or cash on hand and are willing to invest, another way to earn is to invest in a flexible business such as online selling and marketing. For Royces, a news anchor and now a marketing business builder, the investment she made is worth it as she is reaping the rewards of her business by selling products and marketing. Despite the ECQ implementation and even up to now, she continues to get in touch with her clients online while the company takes care of sending whatever products her customers buy.
Dati po ang hinahanap ko lang konting extra income, tapos time freedom. Ngayon po, we have passive income already and we have time freedom. Diba? We only do presentations 3 times a week. 3 times a day. Okay? In between, tutulog, kakain, makikipaglaro sa bata. Yun na yun. Diba? Very easy.
Whether you choose to invest in a viable business or look for jobs that can be done at home, just make sure to have the necessary gadgets needed like a laptop or a desktop computer and a fast and reliable internet connection. The Department of Labor and Employment as well as the Department of Trade and Industry also advise the public to properly scrutinize the business or job and the website to avoid being scammed. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A lawmaker in the upper chamber has filed a resolution seeking an investigation on the alleged abuses and illegal acts of local government officials in implementing quarantine protocols. This comes after the shoot-to-kill post of Quezon City official Rani Ludovica. According to Senator Risa Hontiveros, Ludovica's threats were not only disturbing but also counterproductive and illegal. She also urged the QC government to consider replacing the official. Hontiveros adds the illegal acts committed in the reported cases of abuse by local officials during the pandemic need to stop and violate the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. Malacanang expresses solidarity with Lebanon after a massive explosion in its capital, Beirut. The palace is one with the families and friends of Filipinos who passed or were injured because of the incident. According to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, the Department of Foreign Affairs has been instructed to assist all Filipinos affected by the explosions through the Philippine Embassy in Beirut. Meanwhile, Labor Secretary Silvestre Rebello III vows to extend assistance toward nationals in distress in Lebanon and repatriate them, including the bodies of 2 Filipino fatalities. Secretary Rebello also confirmed that 11 other Filipinos who are seafarers have gone missing after the explosion. Lebanese authorities say thousands were left homeless by the blast that killed at least 100 and wounded 4,000. Meanwhile, let's take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The cumulative confirmed COVID-19 cases around the world surpasses 18.5 million today. That's after nearly 220,000 new cases were reported by various countries from yesterday. The Americas account for more than 9.7 million of the world's total cases. The fast-spreading disease has claimed more than 701,000 lives. More than 4,000 new death cases were recorded in the last 24 hours, while the number of patients who have recovered from the disease across the globe rises to more than 11.1 million, thanks be to God.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Good evening, Stephanie. What have you got for us this evening?
William, today Hong Kong police severely condemned netizens for spreading fake news that the Commissioner of Police was infected with COVID-19. I will also tell you why it seems that majority of Canadians are in favor of stricter anti-coronavirus measures if necessary, a recent poll finds, and why an ex-Google engineer has been sentenced to serve time in prison by a U.S. court.
Go ahead, Stephanie. Please tell us why.
Hong Kong police today severely condemned netizens for spreading fake news that the Commissioner of Police was infected with COVID-19. The police sternly stated that such a rumor is totally groundless and fictitious. The force warned that resolute follow-up action will be taken against ill-intentioned parties who intend to cause chaos by spreading fake news. The Ministry of Health in New Zealand reports 2 new cases of COVID-19 today. Both are travelers from the Philippines. The first case is a man in his 20s who arrived in New Zealand on July 23 from the Philippines via Hong Kong, while the second case is a woman in her 40s who arrived in New Zealand on August 1 from the Philippines. Both are now in isolation facilities in New Zealand. It has been 96 days since the last case of COVID-19 was acquired locally from an unknown source in New Zealand. It seems that majority of Canadians are in favor of stricter anti-coronavirus measures if necessary, a recent poll finds. A Nanos research poll done on more than 1,000 Canadians finds that 70% would support or somewhat support returning to lockdown in the event of a second wave of coronavirus infection. 60% of Canadians report feeling more worried or somewhat worried about contracting the virus when more businesses opened and physical distancing measures were relaxed. One of the 4 pollsters say it's pretty clear that Canadians understand that even though they may be doing okay, this is not over. Meanwhile, 25% of people say the changes made no difference to them. And about 9 out of 10 Canadians support mandatory masks in indoor places, while 8% oppose the idea. The Canadian territory Nunavut, with a population of about 40,000, has 0 COVID-19 cases to date. Meanwhile, Quebec has the most cases, with almost 60,000 confirmed positives. Based on government data, Canada has 117,792 cumulative confirmed cases. Meanwhile, as the global death toll has passed 700,000, more than 11 million people have recovered from the virus. The USA still has the most caseload, now with over 4.7 million confirmed cases, but with over 1.5 million recoveries. The USA, however, still has the highest death toll at more than 150,000.
Sadly, India is edging slowly to 2 million cases, with its government the country's intensifying testing capacity. It's worth considering that there are challenges in comparing countries, such as population, how widely they test for COVID-19, and the health capacity. Meanwhile, about 3,000 employees of airline Virgin Australia will lose their jobs as the Australian government reintroduces rules and penalties for unemployed recipients of job seeker benefit. Joining us today is one of our correspondents in Australia, Marvy Delphine, to tell us why live from Perth, Australia. Marvy, why is this
Airline
so?
Virgin Australia will shut down its budget carrier Tiger Air and suspend long-haul international flights amid the coronavirus pandemic. About 3,000 staff will lose their jobs consequently under new owners. In a statement, Virgin Australia Chief Executive Officer Paul Scurra says it's a hard day for the 3,000 staff, but it is their intention to get back to about 8,000 staff. The airline, with debts of $6.8 billion was taken over by U.S. private equity GN Bain Capital. Meanwhile, the Australian government has reintroduced rules and penalties for unemployed recipients of job seeker benefit. Job seeker payment is financial help for those between 22 and pension age and looking for work, or those sick or injured and are unable to do their usual work for a short period of time. Stephanie?
Thank you, Marvy, for that report. A former engineer for Google's self-driving car unit has been sentenced by a U.S. court to 18 months in prison for trade secret theft shortly before he joined Uber. U.S. District Judge William Alsop in San Francisco said Anthony Lewandowski had carried out the biggest trade secret crime I have ever seen. Judge Alsop, who handed down the sentencing on Tuesday, added this was not small, this was massive in scale. Lewandowski was found to have loaded more than 14,000 highly confidential Google files onto his laptop before leaving the firm in January 2016. He led Uber's RoboCar project only to be fired in 2017 over this case. Lewandowski filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March this year because he owes $179 million to Google's parent company Alphabet for the theft. Lewandowski's attorney, as well as Uber, didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Hong Kong and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Stephanie C., and stay safe there in Hong Kong.
A track and field refugee athlete is UNHCR's newest Goodwill ambassador. Nina Armilio has the story why.
Sudanese runner Yik Purbil was announced on Tuesday as Goodwill Ambassador for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, in August 2020. Bill competed at the 2016 Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, as a member of the first refugee Olympic team. Since then, his running has brought him to journeys to 26 countries, not only as an athlete, but also as an advocate for refugees, and has been actively involved in efforts to bring peace to his homeland. Poor, who is currently living and studying in the United States of America, has been a supporter of UNHCR since 2016. He was forced to flee war in South Sudan in 2005 at the age of 10, leaving his parents, and arriving alone in Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya. He developed a talent for football and was recognized for having athletic abilities during trials to identify refugee athletes. For Poor, UNHCR helps refugees not only to survive, but also to thrive. He says it is a huge honor for him to be able to use his status as an athlete to help refugees and displaced people and make sure that refugees all over the world have a voice. As the agency's newest Goodwill Ambassador, he will continue to advocate for the rights of displaced people while continuing his training to be on the refugee Olympic team at the Tokyo Games in 2021. Poor believes that he could show to his fellow refugees that they have a chance and a hope in life, not only through education but also running. Poor has also been appointed as a board member of the Olympic Refugee Foundation, whose goal is to create safe and accessible sports facilities in areas where there are refugees and displaced communities. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Those are the reasons behind the news August 5, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Have a great evening.